Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here today, my name is Odds, and we are going to be talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. I promise I won't go on a huge tangent about how I'm right and always right and love to be right, but I'm really feeling it, guys. So I'm on a roll from Hawkeye, back from Loki. Guys, it feels so good to be right. So we're talking about No Way Home. I'm going to give you a bit of my recap, my highlights, my review, and we'll talk a little bit about what I think could be in a potential future Spider-Man trilogy. If you're new here today, I would love for you to subscribe. I do 3 videos a week, beauty, vlogs, Marvel, Star Wars, lots of stuff on this channel. I am trying to get to 400 subscribers. I am 8 away right now, so please subscribe and stay tuned for more content in the future because this will probably not be the last time we talk about this movie. I'm going to do a year-end recap, and this will definitely be in this. Careful for spoiler warnings, by the way, because we're going to start off with... That's right, folks, Matt Murdock is in fact in No Way Home, so the leaked scene where he was sitting around the table was actually correct. I thought so. That one didn't look as photoshopped as the one with Andrew and Toby, but they were accurate. The leaks were accurate, so if you managed to avoid the leaks, then that was great. But I did not, but I still nearly lost my shit when I saw Matt Murdock. Also, he then catches a brick with super crazy reflexes and Peter asks how he did that. He just says, "I'm a really good lawyer." Obviously, we know he's Daredevil, so he has these heightened reflexes from the show. So we don't know if it's still, which I talked about in my Hawkeye episode 5 breakdown. We don't know if they're going to canonize everything from the Marvel Daredevil TV show, or if they're doing a soft reboot. I think they're doing a soft reboot, so they're just testing the waters with these characters, and they could be like variants of that, and they could just say that Daredevil itself took place in an alternate universe and take the points that they like from it and bring it into the MCU. I'm like out of breath and exhausted because I got home and went to bed at like 2:30. And I'm on point 2 and I have 21 points to make. This video is gonna be so long. Doc Ock gets a redemption arc in this, which I really liked because I love the redemption arc he has towards the end of Spider-Man 2. That's still my personal favorite Spider-Man movie. If you're curious about my ranking, I'll give it to you in a little bit at the end of the video. Well, in a lot of it probably, because this video is going to be long as crap. But he helps these 3 Spider-Man, stops Electro from being so OP'd by putting the little cure device on him so that he can stop. I'm just going to talk about the Sinister Six villains, although we didn't get really a full Sinister Six, but we got kind of a Sinister Six. So I talked about Doc Ock. Green Goblin is definitely the ringleader of this one. They don't really work together all too much, but they all are just trying to fight Spider-Man. So Green Goblin and Electro are kind of the 2 big bads of this. Green Goblin being the biggest because of what he ends up doing in the film. I think Willem Dafoe's performance is great. He was great in the first one, but he is just excellent in this. Shout out to, he says, "I'm a bit of a scientist myself," which is from the first Spider-Man movie, so he goes back to that quote. There is a couple quotes that are from other properties that are in this, so really loved that. I laughed so loud just because of the memes of that particular quote. But yeah, Green Goblin was definitely the highlight of this film. So I definitely say if you're a fan of Green Goblin, go watch it. And we do get more of a comic book accurate Green Goblin, who doesn't look as ridiculous, but is more comic accurate than the suit that we have in the first one. So he gets rid of that mask pretty early on, so you don't have to deal with it really anymore. If you don't like it because that costume is extremely divisive. Apparently, I like it, but a lot of people really don't like that Green Goblin costume. Lizard doesn't get too much play. Lizard and Sandman, I think, are kind of just there. Sandman has more play than Lizard, but Lizard kind of just wants to turn everybody into a lizard creature himself, which is the point of him in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. So he doesn't have that much different of an arc, but that's pretty much what his goal is. Sandman just wants to get home. He's, again, not really a villain, but he doesn't really trust anybody. But he is just trying to get home to his daughter. So, like in Spider-Man 3, he just is all focused on his daughter and not on being a villain, really. He's not trying to be a villain. It's just the life he's had to lead. Electro gets a huge upgrade in this movie. Now, I will be honest with you, I didn't watch the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I want to watch the first one. The second one I've watched 45 minutes of and was absolutely terrible, including Jamie Foxx Electro, who was just like a totally blue dude. They explain his juice up a bit in this once he gets... They explain it as a new universe, and also when he gets the arc reactor, he's able to juice up even more. So he gets this huge upgrade. They make fun of the fact that he looked completely different in the Amazing Spider-Man movie, but this one it's just like because of the power that he has in this universe, he was able to look different. We have Doctor Strange as an antagonist of this movie. Now, they do end up kind of getting rid of Doctor Strange for a good majority of the movie and bringing him back in at the end. I think this was just so that they didn't have to pay Benedict Cumberbatch and they could kind of get that out of the way. But basically, because Spider-Man would not have been able to defeat Doctor Strange if he hadn't trapped him in the mirror dimension, which is what happens for 2 hours of this movie. But we have him as an antagonist at first, but then they find out that his plan, he comes back in at the end, find out that Spider-Man's plan is working, which is kind of shocking to him, and they decide to go through with a different plan at the end. So he's needed for that, and it does set up Multiverse of Madness, so we're going to talk about that at the end as well when we get there. I have Michelle Jones Watson, ? I'm not a big fan of the MJ character in this, just because I wish if they wanted her to be her own character, they should have done that. If they wanted her to be Mary Jane, they should have done that. So I think Zendaya would have made a great Mary Jane Watson, but they decided they wanted to do a different character, but now they're tying her into MJ from the comics, but she's nothing like MJ from the comics, so it's just kind of frustrating as a comic book fan to really see this. Not accurate, but also they're trying hard to make her MJ when she's really not. I know that might be a controversial opinion, but that's the whole thing with the MCU Spider-Man. It's like not very comic book accurate, which neither really are the Toby Maguire Spider-Man movies, but I think that's a little bit more understandable from that time. It came out in an era where we were not trying to be comic accurate or state that we're pulling stuff from the comics, which the MCU likes to say that they do, but really they kind of water a lot of stuff down. So that's just my little mini rant for this video, but I just wish they would commit to one characterization and kind of roll with it. Aunt May says the infamous line, "With great power comes great responsibility," and then she ends up dying because once you say that, you end up dying. So what's the deal with Uncle Ben in this universe? Is he just not around? Well, obviously Uncle Ben is dead in this universe, but how exactly did he die? Are we ever going to touch on Uncle Ben? I don't know. It's kind of interesting they went that route. I had a feeling she was going to die because Marissa Tomei was coming out and saying how I think she didn't love the characterization of her character, which I don't deny either. But I thought she was fine in this movie, and I think she's fine as, like, again, a different character. But yeah, got killed off, and it really set up for an interesting end of this movie. So I thought that was ultimately it was a good choice that the writers made for this, and we'll see how that continues to impact Peter going forward. Now we have to talk about our boys. Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire do come into this as we predicted. Now Andrew comes in with his Spider-Man costume on, and Toby comes in like street clothes, but he's wearing his Spider-Man costume underneath. So we see them work together. They work together as Peter Parkers, they work together as Spider-Man. I thought it worked really well, the banter they had between the three of them. I think especially the banter between Toby and Andrew really worked. The conversations they had were really great. Now, Toby is definitely an older, more experienced Spider-Man. Andrew's been doing it for a few years after the death of Gwen Stacy, which he's still not over, which I don't think you could ever really get over. But he mentioned that he became more bitter and vengeful, whereas Toby is still, he's still happily with MJ, which I'm so happy they confirmed in this. So in his universe, they are still happily together, and he's been Spider-Man for quite a while, since Tobey Maguire is in his 40s. So yeah, it's really great. There's a great scene of them all talking on the Statue of Liberty before the villains show up, and I really loved when Tobey Maguire is having all these back problems from swinging around, and Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man, cracks his back doing the, stand up and shake the person and crack their back. I thought that was really great. Tom Holland was Peter 1, Toby was Peter 2, and Andrew was Peter 3. Now, in that conversation they have on the Statue of Liberty, Toby calls Andrew amazing several times, which, nod to Amazing Spider-Man, of course. I wanted somebody to call somebody else spectacular, because that would have been great, because the spectacular Spider-Man. Ned Leeds goes up to his Peter Parker and says, don't worry, I'm not going to turn evil and try to kill you. That is a nod to, in the comics, Ned Leeds is the Hobgoblin. He's a version of the Hobgoblin. So very interesting that he says that. I don't think they're going to move forward and make Ned Leeds a villain at any point in this, but I just think it's really interesting that they went ahead and threw that little Easter egg in for us. Another thing from a leak that was accurate was Andrew Spider-Man saves MJ from falling down to her death. He could not save Gwen Stacy in the same way, so he's able to save MJ. And there's a very touching moment when they get to the bottom where he's clearly really emotional that he was able to save her. So good for you. You were able to get redemption there and save somebody's girlfriend, even if it wasn't your own. Electro has a pretty funny line, but another Easter egg, that he thought that Spider-Man was going to be black just because he's from Queens and he's always helping the poor people. And there has to be a black Spider-Man somewhere. There is. We know it's Miles Morales, so hopefully we're just laying more seeds for Miles Morales to come into the MCU, because that is honestly what I'm waiting for so much. In a future trilogy, I want Miles Morales to be in this, so hopefully we can move towards that in the future. Again, I'm going to talk more about the Spider-Man trilogy, the next one, in a bit. Now, I thought they were going to kill Tobey Maguire off, but he gets impaled by the Green Goblin blade in the back of Norman Osborn's forearm, or in his forearm. He has the little shank, basically. He gets shanked. Similarly, not in the balls like in Spider-Man 1, but how Green Goblin was impaled, he is impaled in the back. So he does get backstabbed, but Tobey Maguire is trying to stop Tom Holland from stabbing him to death with the glider, as that was the way that he went out in Spider-Man 1. So they changed that so that that doesn't happen, and they are able to cure Norman Osborn despite the animosity that Tom Holland has for him just because of him killing Aunt May. So at the end of this, the multiverse starts cracking and all of this is going on, and our MCU Spider-Man is like, you know what, just have everybody forget who Peter Parker is, and we'll have them all go off to their own universe, and everyone in this universe is going to forget who Peter Parker is. And that is what happens. So we get kind of a fresh start at the end of this. It seems like an ending, but it also seems like new beginnings with this, which will go into a trilogy. We find out Ned and MJ get into MIT, and Peter is finishing his GED, so I guess he didn't end up graduating from high school. So he's going to work on his GED. Maybe he'll go work at the Daily Bugle, now that the Daily Bugle is no longer like an InfoWars Alex Jones situation. It is a full-blown news network, but maybe he'll go work and get pictures for Spider-Man like he does in the comics, so that would be really cool. We do see he gets his own apartment. You know, he could get his GED, he could go get to college, and maybe we move into like a Gwen situation, and we can introduce characters like Spider-Gwen and characters like Silk, Black Cat. There's a lot of characters we can still add in from this that I would be really excited to see in a team-up. I would really love to see Miles Morales come into the MCU. So if we do start another Spider-Man trilogy, I know they were trying to put Tom Holland in the lead in all of those, but I would say that maybe have him be the lead in the first one and then transfer it to Miles Morales. That's just my thoughts. I would like to see something else besides Peter Parker in the future. Although I did love that we got all the Peter Parkers in this. So if you're a fan of Spider-Man and any of the Spider-Men, there was a piece of something for everybody in this movie, which I really appreciated. They did the fan service very, very well in this movie. Oh my god, I'm 20 minutes in, and I still have to talk about the post-credit scenes. So the first post-credit scene is with Venom. Venom and Eddie Brock is learning all about the universe that he's in, since he's in the MCU universe, and then comes to find out that he ends up getting sent back, which is kind of a bummer, with the spell. So he definitely came through with the spell, and he ends up getting sent back to his universe, but he ends up leaving a bit of the symbiote behind. So that's quite interesting that they ended up doing that. I would think that if they want to have a Venom, a different Eddie Brock Venom and Spider-Man versus movie, they could always do the Tom Hardy version with the Andrew Garfield version, because there's no version of Venom in that universe, and they could easily make that the same universe. Could be interesting, you know? Definitely wouldn't mind seeing that. That would give Andrew Garfield his own Spider-Man 3, which I think they're kind of just tossing feelers out to see what people still like and what sticks. But we do have a symbiote in the MCU, so we're going to see a lot of stuff, and I hope that means we'll see Null, the god of the symbiotes, in Thor Love and Thunder, since we do have the Necro Sword, which was wielded by Null. So really, really cool, and hope we see some more symbiote action in the MCU. The second post-credit scene is the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness trailer. I'm not going to break it down too much. I'm sure when they release it I can do a little video on it, but basically just want to mention, yes, there is a lot of Wanda... I was going to call it nonsense. Doctor Strange goes to talk to Wanda, and she's like, yo, I'm sorry about Westview, and he's like, I'm not here about that, I need your help, because definitely go to somebody who has the Darkhold for help. Seems like a bad idea, because somebody's going to let out Mephisto. And we don't see any of the villain, but we do see Baron Mordo, and we do see America Chavez. So that's cool. I don't think it was great. Not the movie. I don't think the trailer for Multiverse of Madness was great. I think once we get like a full trailer, it might look a little bit more appealing to me. But I have my thoughts about casting that not a fan. So I'll see it because it's an MCU movie, but I just don't know. It just doesn't look like it's for me, and that's fine. I'm curious as to exactly why we had to do the whole spell thing if we had the multiverse already getting messed up by Loki and Sylvie. I guess to justify Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but I just would have thought it would have been more interesting if they had just gone the whole thing with Kang the Conqueror. So I know they're going to pull that in later, but I'm interested in how that's going to tie into Multiverse of Madness as well, since they seem like it's just the consequences of this film that are tying into Multiverse of Madness. But we shall see. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there because this is 25 minutes. I know it'll be a little shorter when I edit it down, but this is a long video. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. I did not point out everything. There were other Easter eggs in this. If you're looking for a full Easter egg breakdown video, go watch New Rockstars. They are awesome over there. And shout out to my online friend MT. He's great. But Eric Voss does all the breakdowns. So check those out. They're going to have lots of videos on Spider-Man. So I will definitely link their channel down below. Please subscribe, get me to 400, especially if you like this video. Please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. We need more women talking about nerdy content online, especially more gay women talking about nerdy content online. So definitely stay tuned for more, and I will see you on Monday with a new video. Bye!